So I love April Fools, and one of my favorite things is watching what different companies do with the holiday. And I would say one of my favorite examples is what Timex did with this watch. This watch is the 25th hour. They claimed that they found an extra hour in the day and they were going to give it to you. They made this watch available for 25 hours and I was able to snag one up. Let's talk a little bit about it. This watch is essentially just a reskinned weekender watch. So if you've ever worn one of those, it wears very similarly and also very cheaply. Those watches hover around the $25 to $30 range. I paid closer to $75 or $80 for this. And still, that's worth it because the story behind this watch and the look of this watch, the aesthetics, as you can tell, are just amazing. It is served as a wonderful conversation piece. If I'm at the bar, this watch gets more comments than any of my other watches. I have an Orient that I really love that was closer to $250. It's a Flieger B style and it's somewhat eye-catching. It looks cool. It's my favorite watch until I wear this. And I remember why I like watches. I don't use this to tell the time. I don't use this for anything other than an aesthetic choice. It's a piece of jewelry. It's something that is supposed to accent my outfit. And this goes well with pretty much any outfit. I can wear this to a wedding just as easily as I can wear this with casual clothes for an everyday thing. It is a cheap enough watch also that it's really easy to just throw around. I'm not stressed about damaging this in any way. Would I like to have a Patek Philippe on my wrist? Yeah, absolutely. But I think this might actually garner more attention than any Patek I could wear from people who are not watch aficionados, for people who don't pay attention to the scene. If a random stranger sees a Patek on your wrist, it may look expensive, but that's about all they can tell you. This is a point of interest. That little orange sliver over the 25th hour, it's eye-catching, it's interesting, and it still maintains a classic look that I think is also super important. It doesn't come across as cheap when you glance at it. It doesn't come across as something that is just a joke, even though that's actually 100% what it is. I love that this watch is able to convey two separate things. I think most of the time, your watch is a reflection of the things that you value or the things that are interesting to you. For example, my Orient Flieger style watch. I have always been in love with the idea and just the cool factor of aviation, growing up watching Top Gun and just falling in love with the idea of flight. And wearing that on my wrist allows me to feel a little bit closer to something that I probably won't ever really pursue. By the same token, this watch is able to convey another part of my personality, another thing that I value, which is the humor and the lightheartedness and the joy that I generally associate with April Fools. I love it. I love that holiday. This watch walks this really cool line that I think anyone who values a sense of humor in their day-to-day life is also walking, in that it portrays itself as this very classic, very sharp-looking timepiece. But underneath all of that, it's a joke. It is a joke from a major company that is also not taking themselves too seriously. So let's get into a little bit of the technical parts of it. It's a 40mm watch face, which sits really well on my wrist. That's one of my favorite sizes. 38 feels a little too small sometimes, but now we've gotten into this race for bigger and bigger watch faces. And I mean, I've seen some that are 45, 48mm watch faces. I think that's ridiculous. And I'm a pretty big guy. I just think they look kind of dumb on the wrist. It seems like a fad. This seems classic. I think when you hover between that 38 and 42mm range, that's about where most people should be buying their watches. So this sits squarely in the middle of that. This watch is a very standard quartz movement. It is a functional watch, but that is all it does. It doesn't track your date. It doesn't have any other complications. It's just a watch. One of the things that I really love about it is the way that they shifted the numbers to make room for that 25th hour, and it still tells accurate time. I should point that out. The dial will skip by 2s up until it gets to the 22nd hour. And at that 22nd hour, it skips 23, 24, straight up to 25. But if you're using this to tell accurate time, I feel like you're missing the point. It is a beautiful, interesting dial. I like how it's offset and kind of awkward and weird. It has a denotation at the very bottom that says 25th hour. Above that it says Timex, and that's it. It's just a very simple watch face. I love it. The carved out orange looks really, really nice, and it adds a nice color pop without being too neon or too out there. It flows very, very well, and it looks a lot better in person than I think it did in any of the pictures. It has Indiglow just like most Timex watches, and I actually really love that function. It's nice. Even though I'm not using this to tell time, if I am somewhere where it is dark or it is difficult to get out my phone, or I just want to check the time or idly play with my watch, Indiglow is kind of a fun feature. One of the things that I hate about most Timexes in this price range, and the reason I almost didn't buy this watch, is their ticking sound. I cannot overstate how loud this watch is. I can hear it in my kitchen if I'm sitting in the living room. I cannot sleep with it next to my bed. I pull the crown out at night so that it will stop ticking. It will keep me up at night. It is something that if I'm working on intense work that is quiet, I will leave the watch in another room. I have edited videos where I can't wear this watch because it's so loud to be distracting. You can hear it while you're driving, you can hear it all the time. The reason that's not a deal breaker is because most of the time I'm wearing this watch when I'm going out. This watch is a conversation piece first and a timepiece second. I've found myself wearing this more and more frequently just because it allows me so many more opportunities to talk to people that I haven't met yet. And that's something that's a lot harder to do in 2019 than it ever has been before. I enjoy how easily this wears on the wrist. I think the band that ships with this watch is great. I think this watch would look really good on a NATO strap. I think it would look really nice on a leather strap with white stitching. I've always liked that look, but I left mine with the stock strap and I'm really happy with it. It wears really comfortably. It's not too tight, it's not too loose, it doesn't feel too cheap, even though it is a pretty cheap watch. So who is this watch for? Well, I'm a guy that shops almost exclusively for story. And most of my purchases, especially things that I am using to spark conversation or things that I'm going to eventually talk with someone about, those things have to have an interesting story behind them. This fits the bill for me. And if you can find it for less than $100, I think this is a fantastic watch. I think they have some available on eBay, and more than likely Timex is going to make it available again. I really liked that it was a limited edition watch that felt cool, and it also helped me justify that price jump quite a bit. I wear this much more frequently than the Weekender I had before, which I eventually gave away. The Weekender was so loud that I gave it away because it didn't have any of the redeeming qualities of this watch. It looked nice, but this looks cool, and there's a difference. So absolutely, I highly recommend this watch. If you're interested in automatic watches versus quartz watches, we may make another video to kind of talk about that and why I prefer those styles of watches. In fact, my ideal watch would actually be this watch face on any of my other automatic watches. I think automatic watches have a ton of character that's just inherent to their design. This watch definitely earns a spot next to every other watch that I've enjoyed wearing. In fact, it's ranked quite a bit higher just because of how much fun it is. It's just an interesting, cool, great experiment from Timex, and I'd like to see more companies jump on board with this style of April Fool's joke. It's very wearable, it wasn't temporary, it's something that I enjoy the hell out of. I think this is one of my most interesting and favorite purchases I've ever made, just because the story behind it is so much fun. This watch is fun, it is interesting, and it's easy to wear on the wrist. I highly recommend it. If you can find it for less than $100, it's a fantastic buy. But definitely invest in some earplugs. You'll need them. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to link a written review below. It's at my website, tndmtr.com. The name doesn't matter.com.